For some insight, let's turn to Zhao Hai. He's the Director of International Political Studies at the National Institute for Global Strategy. Zhao Hai, what does each side hope to achieve from these high-level talks going on in Beijing?
Well, first of all, from the Chinese perspective, it's very important to execute what the two top leaders reached last year at San Francisco, what China calls San Francisco Vision. And one of the key components of that is to maintain strategic stability between the two sides, and also for the U.S. side to fulfill its commitment on the Taiwan issue. And also for China, it's important to address other issues like the tech export control from the U.S. side, and also increasing tariff trade restrictions from the U.S. side. Other sensitive issues, including South China Sea, other major hotspots around the world, like Ukraine issues and what's going on in the Middle East. Also, China want to talk about cooperations like climate change and other issues on the table. From the American side, I think National Security Advisor Sullivan has made it very clear that the U.S. also wants stable relationship with China, particularly at this critical juncture when the U.S. is going through its presidential campaign. It's very sensitive at this moment. And also, he probably will talk about fentanyl, Taiwan issues, regional stability, and global issues. So there are many issues on the table for both sides.
Yeah, there are many issues on the table. As you mentioned, Taiwan, South China Sea, Ukraine, the issue of tariffs. Are there areas where you think they can probably, or they can hopefully narrow some of the differences? Because listen, we all know these are issues that they don't see eye to eye on. But what about managing those differences and narrowing those disagreements?
Well, at this moment, it's very difficult to narrow those differences, major differences. I think one area that is hopeful, or two things that I'm hopeful. One is that the top leaders will have some kind of face-to-face meeting before the end of the year or early next year, because President Biden is not seeking another term, and he is the only president after President Carter that never visited China, never had a state visit to China. So maybe it's possible that he's going to visit China, or the two leaders will meet in G20 or other APEC meetings. And the other hopeful area is that the both sides will increase cooperation on climate change and other issues, regional security issues like the Middle East.
Well, let me ask you about this summit. If it happens, you think that would actually happen between President Biden and President Xi, and that it would happen in China?
Well, there's probably less a possibility by now, but hopefully that could happen. What's most likely is that they're going to meet again at a G20 meeting in Brazil. But I think it's a good sign if President Biden can take the time and travel to China and continue the old tradition that's at least one state visit from U.S. President to China for their term.
And let me ask you a final question, Zhao Hai. What about these U.S. and Chinese military dialogue that's been going on since President Xi and President Biden had their summit in San Francisco? They agreed to resume those direct military talks. Why has that been so significant? Why is it such a big deal?
Well, because, since Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, there's a disruption between the mill-to-mill dialogue between the two sides. And that brings a lot of problems because of potential misunderstanding and potential military conflict in the region. And because the issue of Taiwan and South China Sea is very sensitive, and particularly the relationship between China and Philippines is almost getting out of hands. So at this moment, two militaries talking to each other in close communication to avoid any misunderstanding and manage the situation effectively is very important. So since last meeting in San Francisco, there's a major breakthrough that they restored the dialogue, and also from regional commands. So I think following that, there's going to be more dialogues between the two sides, and closer sort of coordination between the two sides to avoid any potential escalation in the region.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree communication is a lot better than confrontation. Zhao Hai, thank you so much.
Thank you.